Welcome to Stellify. Saturn, the ringed giant, has captivated humanity for millennia. Its ethereal beauty, visible even to the naked eye, sparked wonder and curiosity in ancient civilizations. From those early observations emerged myths, rituals, and symbols that have endured through time. Among them, the black cube stands out as a particularly intriguing and enigmatic emblem. Often associated with Saturn, the black cube continues to fascinate and provoke, its true meaning shrouded in mystery. This short video delves into the history and significance of Saturn and its symbolic representation, the black cube, exploring their enduring influence on human culture, belief systems, and the search for meaning in the cosmos. Long before the invention of the telescope, ancient astronomers recognized Saturn as a unique celestial wanderer. They observed its slow movement across the sky, its faint golden hue, and the mysterious appendages that later generations would identify as rings. These early observations fueled the imaginations of ancient cultures, giving rise to myths and deities associated with time, harvest, and the cyclical nature of life. With the advent of modern astronomy, our understanding of Saturn has expanded dramatically. We now know it is a gas giant, composed primarily of hydrogen and helium, with a complex system of rings made up of ice and rock. We have been shown space probes like Voyager and Cassini, which have revealed stunning images of Saturn's swirling atmosphere, its numerous moons, and the intricate details of its rings. However, I must mention, I have my doubts about anything that comes from NASA as being legitimate. Despite these scientific advancements, Saturn continues to hold a place of wonder and fascination in the human psyche. Its ancient symbolism intertwined with our modern understanding of the cosmos. In Roman mythology, Saturn, known as Cronus in Greek tradition, was the god of time, agriculture, and harvest. He was the son of Uranus, sky, and Gaia, earth, and the father of Jupiter, Zeus, Juno, Hera, Neptune, Poseidon, and Pluto, Hades. According to myth, Cronus overthrew his father Uranus, castrating him and seizing control of the cosmos. Fearing a prophecy that he too would be overthrown by his own offspring, Cronus swallowed each of his children as they were born. However, his wife Rhea saved their youngest son, Jupiter, by substituting him with a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes. Jupiter eventually overthrew Cronus, freeing his siblings and ushering in the reign of the Olympian gods. Despite his tyrannical actions, Cronus's reign was also remembered as a golden age, a time of peace, abundance, and harmony. This duality is reflected in Saturn's symbolism, which encompasses both the destructive and regenerative forces of time. In modern astrology, Saturn holds a prominent position as a planet of karma, discipline, and responsibility. However, there are much darker suggestions to what has been noted in modern astrology. Observations have confirmed that there is a hexagonal storm on the north pole of Saturn. The hexagon related to the hexagram symbol forms a cube when the lines are connected. According to ancient and traditional astrological tradition, Saturn is sad, morose, and cold, and was also said to govern the melancholic humour. Saturnian considered the greater malefic in almost all astrological and alchemical traditions, and is typically associated with the colour black, death, constraints and limitations, space-time, and is often represented by the cube. The worship of Saturn dates back to ancient times, with evidence of dedicated temples and rituals found in various cultures. In ancient Rome, the festival of Saturnalia, celebrated during the winter solstice, honoured Saturn with feasting, revelry, and a temporary suspension of social norms. Some scholars believe that elements of Saturn worship were absorbed into later religious traditions, influencing the development of holidays like Christmas and Hanukkah. In more recent times, Saturn has become the subject of speculation and darker theories. Some researchers associate Saturn with occult practices, secret societies, and a hidden force controlling the world. These claims highlight the enduring power of Saturn as a symbol of mystery, power, and the unknown. The black cube, in particular, has become a focal point for such theories. Its simple geometric form open to a wide range of interpretations and projections. The black cube, a seemingly simple geometric shape, has taken on profound symbolic meaning across various cultures and belief systems. Its origins and interpretations are as diverse as the civilizations that have embraced it, as a representation of the divine, the cosmos, or the fundamental forces governing the universe. In some traditions, the black cube represents the earth or the material world, a symbol of solidity, stability, and the limitations of the physical realm. In others, it is associated with the concept of void or nothingness, a representation of the primordial state before creation. The black cube's association with Saturn likely stems from the planet's ancient connection to time, fate, and the cyclical nature of existence. Just as the cube's geometric perfection represents order and structure, Saturn's influence is often felt as a force that imposes limitations and demands discipline. The colour black, often associated with the unknown, the void, or the unconscious, adds another layer of complexity to the black cube's symbolism. You might not know it, but the entire world has been worshipping Saturn for thousands of years. The cult has never stopped, and its rites are still present to this day. Saturn, dubbed the Lord of the Rings, is the reason why we exchange rings at weddings or put halos on the heads of godly people. Before the Great Flood, Saturn was regarded by all mankind as the supreme god and ruler of the kings. Occult researchers affirm that Saturn ruled the kingdom of Atlantis and became the divine ancestor of all earthly patriarchs and kings. The Saturn cult is ingrained into nearly every aspect of our life, yet the true significance of Saturn can be found within secret societies and in the deepest underpinnings of religion. Semitic civilizations referred to the god Saturn as El, who is the supreme deity and represented by a black cube. Let's look at some points here. Saturn is the cult of El. The Kabbalah is the cube of God. Saturn is the Lord of the Rings. There is a hexagonal cube on the north pole of Saturn, and Saturn is Satan in astrotheology. As Father Time, Saturn keeps us locked into linear, sequential time. It seems we never have enough time to get everything done, but this is only a myth in the physical existence, because as divine souls, our lives are eternal. The ancient name of Saturn was, as mentioned, El. It is the reason why those that were chosen by El were called elites. In fact, the words elect, elder, elevated, Elohim, temple, circle, gospel, apostle, disciple, evangelist, etc., all derive from the cult of El. The association of Saturn with organized religion can be traced back to the foundational principles and structures established by many spiritual traditions. The roots of numerous religions often lie in authentic divine connections or peak experiences that individuals seek to replicate. In the process of establishing organized religion, devotees create structures, orders, dogmas, and doctrines to codify and replicate these sacred patterns. This inclination to establish a fixed framework, a Saturnian influence, is prevalent in various religious systems. Religion, as a whole, operates under the influence of Saturn by emphasizing a separation principle and creates division towards other types of spiritual traditions, even ones that are quite similar in essence. The Saturnian influence also manifests through fixation on external elements such as dogma and rituals, often devoid of the direct mystical connection to the divine. In some instances, the inner, more mystical pursuit, which was even the original impetus for why the religion was created in the first place, is ignored, denied, or even repressed and severely persecuted. The Latin root of the word religion means to bind or to tie. So when people use the term religion, they are referring to a set of beliefs, practices, and values that create a binding connection between individuals and their mental interpretation of the sacred or divine, which by its very limitations is not the divine. What results is often binding themselves to doctrines, dogmas, external rites and forms. Once this happens and no real connection exists, it becomes a form of Saturn worship. The most obvious and extremely Saturnian religions are the Abrahamic faiths, which refer to the fact that they initially started through a blood sacrifice ritual to make a covenant to secure land and heirs. The question we must ask, is this simply just blood magic? Besides the aforementioned blood covenants, there are more rituals like circumcision, another Saturnian blood ritual that originally had an inner symbolic meaning, and the binding of the tefillin, which are obvious examples of Saturnian practices and rites that continue to this day. The Old Testament, associated with Saturn, represents the constraints and limitations of the material world. Saturn corresponds to the metal lead in alchemical symbolism. Yeshua's role was to bring a transformative influence, turning the leaden aspects of the Old Testament or transmuting the fallen aspects of the Saturnian demiurge into the golden spiritualized qualities represented by the sun. The New Testament, characterized as solar, embodies the spiritual culmination and enlightenment brought by the Christic embodiment through Yeshua. The sun in alchemy symbolizes the divine or spiritual essence, representing the highest state of transformation through the very creative forces of the divine. The fire of the spirit must be applied to the prima materia, the dense, lifeless, and dull lead of Saturn, in order to purify and transmute it. This transition from Saturn, or lead, to the sun, gold, is the alchemical path, where the individual undergoes a process of purification, shedding material constraints and purifying the astral waters, though an inner baptism, attaining union with the Christ, the anointed, in the bridal chamber, in order to house the divine within. The path of alchemy, in this context, becomes a metaphor for the spiritual journey of transcending the limitations of the material world and attaining a state of spiritual purity and enlightenment, symbolized by the sun, and elevating oneself to a higher, more refined state that is capable of embodying the divine. The cube represents the material world and space-time, capturing the structured and confined nature of earthly reality and representing the temple or a structure. When unfolded, the cube forms a cross, symbolizing the potential for transcending the material realm and sacrificing matter to attain communion with the spiritual. The unfolding of the cube into a cross implies a transformative process where the constraints of material existence are sacrificed for a higher spiritual understanding, highlighting the dynamic interplay between the material and spiritual dimensions. The mystery of the cross is that the cube of Saturn is not destroyed but fulfilled, as the base structure that allows one to open to greater ascent of consciousness. In the Gnostic tradition, the cross holds profound symbolism as an emblem representing the soul's journey, and its triumph over lower forces to achieve union with the divine. Serving as a symbol of sacrifice and redemption, the cross signifies the willingness to relinquish lower aspects for spiritual transformation, mirroring the narrative of Christ's sacrifice. So please let me know your thoughts on this research into the Saturn cube. Does any of this resonate with you, or do you have more to add to this fascinating subject? Please do let me know in the comments below.